Tony winner Idina Menzel back on Broadway in the new musical Redwood. It's a brand new title with a brand new score. Here's Beth Stevens with another edition of Building Broadway.
Thanks, Tamsin. Idina Menzel has returned to Broadway in a new musical, Redwood. I sat down with the creators behind the show, writer-director Tina Landau and composer Kate Diaz. This show is so fresh and original. I want to hear about its genesis, Tina.
The genesis began 15 years ago or so when Idina and I first had a meeting. She called me and she was obsessed with a woman named Julia Butterfly Hill, who was an activist in the 1990s, who went up and tree sat in a giant redwood to protest logging practices. And I was obsessed with people in trees and was looking at a book called The Baron in the Trees, thinking of adapting it. So we had this connection about what would it be like to be in a tree and live there, and why would someone do that? Our lives got very busy, we went our separate ways, and then during the pandemic, when I realized I couldn't direct for a while, I called her and I said, are you still interested in this germ, this seed, this image? And the show really grew out of that time and being isolated, being in nature, going through a loss that I experienced personally, and the way that the trees kind of brought me solace and became my friends during that time, and that's what it was born out of.
Kate, how did you come into this project? Because I think it's an interesting story.
Yeah, so Tina was looking for a composer, and she and Idina wanted to find somebody outside of the theater space. So from what I've heard, Tina kind of just like scoured the internet, and I ended up on her short list of people to reach out to and ask to demo. And that was like the first week of 2021, so very much still in the pandemic.
But it was really out of the blue, just responding to her music and what I found online.
How did that feel to get that email?
Oh, it was crazy. It was so exciting. I first couldn't really believe it, but also, I mean, it had such a beautiful description of the story, and I immediately was really excited by it. And I've told you this before, but I was like, I'd love to see this show. I hope I could actually be the composer of it. So I kind of just hit the ground running and demoed, and Great Escape was the first song that I wrote for it, which is still in the show.
Here I am, I'm up a mile high, but somehow I'm safer in the sky, 'cause it feels so right. I think I'll kiss the world goodbye. Open arms, I'm ready to release. In my heart, I'm suddenly at peace. If I found my reverie, then I'll never wanna leave. 'Cause from here, I can see it clearly. It's nature's remedy, far away for today. Can I stay and make my great escape?
Tina, you talked a little bit about how this show does deal with loss and with healing. How did you weave that into what you were doing with the musical style of the show, Kate?
Yeah, I think the show, it's all at once a very personal story to Jesse, but it's also set against this backdrop of the majesty of the Redwoods and all the grandeur that brings. So there's definitely a really big depth of scale. So the score definitely plays with that a lot. There's a lot of very small, intimate, heartfelt moments, but then also really big, soaring moments as Jesse kind of experiences such a personal journey, but against this landscape that's so much larger than herself.
We all know Idina Menzel is a Broadway supernova. So tell me about crafting this story with her in mind.
Every part of Idina's DNA and sensibility and humor and words are in the show. From the very beginning, I had actually 3 different story ideas that I presented to her, and we kind of landed on this one together, and it was a constant back and forth where I would send her things, and we did a very early workshop where Idina rented a house, and it was me, Kate, Idina, and Idina's husband and my partner were reading the two other roles. A lot of that kind of thing went on where we would just be in a room and Idina would say, well, what if I said this? Or she would just say something and I would incorporate it. But because I know Idina and know her personally, there's so many aspects of who she is that I don't think are always given full expression in the roles she does. And I wanted to tap into all of those. So I just kept pulling and pulling and pulling.
Kate, tell me about your musical influences in working with Tina and with Idina. I know that you have your own style and now you're coming into musical theater. What changed for you and what were you working with?
Yeah, I mean, musically, I grew up writing kind of like alt pop rock songs, and then as I got kind of into my later teens, started writing instrumentally and doing film, TV scoring and stuff like that. And so in this show, I've gotten to do both, which has been just the best. I've always wanted to do that. So yeah, I have like a lot of different influences, and I feel like a lot of them get to really be shown in this show because I try to kind of have every character have a little bit different texture musically, so that's been really fun to explore.
And what she's saying is really why we went to her in the first place was this combination of her pop, rock, alt sensibility and her cinematic breadth. Because I always knew the show needed to have instrumental sections where things could only be expressed in music and where things were beyond words. And so I felt very fortunate to find someone who did that organically.
They said we'll rise just as the phoenix does. Oh, we'll fight to hold on to the things we love. We'll repair and help them to overcome. The hardest work has just begun, but we're gonna be the ones to get it done.
What kind of research did you do to tap into the nature aspect of it?
I mean, Tina did a ton of research and would just send it all to me. And then we both went to the Redwoods, sometimes together, sometimes separate. I climbed a tree with Idina, which was great. I learned a lot in that process.
The very first time we went to Oakland to work with Bandaloop, our vertical choreographers, they were teaching Idina and Kate joined in. And I took pictures from the ground.
You did not.
I really wanted to take photos.
There you go.
And wave at them.
So what did you learn when you were doing those things?
I think just the feeling that Jessie is really tapping into, of feeling so small, but also feeling how big nature is and how beyond yourself it is. You really get that when you step foot in the Redwoods, and it's pretty extraordinary.
So when you joined the project, was there a script? Like, did you have an impression, something to read?
Yeah, there was like an overall kind of outline, I think, in certain scenes, and I'd get pages from Tina, and it always felt like Christmas morning, like it's like, oh, this is what's gonna happen now. Like, I love kind of just diving in and thinking about, what would it feel like musically, which is the best part of my job, I feel like.